Thank you so much, Dick, for that really thoughtful introduction. And thanks to everyone at the Nantucket Book Festival for bringing me here. It's so beautiful. I've never been to Nantucket before, and it was a harrowing trip in. It took our pilot 3 tries, but we made it. Is that typical here? Yeah, I've never had that experience, but I'm glad to be here now. So thank you for coming. And I'm going to start, I do have this new book, which I'll read mostly from, but I'm going to start with one poem from my previous book, because this book, The Uses of the Body, was written mostly one summer on Martha's Vineyard, so I'm thinking of that now. And this book considers the pleasures and complexities of marriage and domestic life and of living in a female body as time passes. Solitaire. One summer, there was no girl left in me. It gradually became clear. It suddenly became. In the pool, I was more heavy than light, pockmarked and flabby in a floppy hat. What will my body be when parked all night in the earth? Midsummer, breathe in, breathe out. I'm not on the oxygen tank. Twice a week, we have sex. The lithe girls poolside, I see them at their weddings. I see them with babies, their hips thickening. I see them middle-aged. I can't see past the point where I am. Like you, I'm just passing through. I want to hold on a while. Don't want to knot or forsake. Don't want to be laid gently or racked raw. If I retinol, if I marathon, if I vitamin C, if I crimson my lips and streakish my hair, if I wax, exfoliate, copulate beside the fish-slicked sea. Fill me, I'm cold. Fill me, I'm halfway gone. Would you crush me in the stairwell? Could we just lie down? If the brakes don't work, if the pesticides won't wash off, if the 7th floor pushes a brick out the window and it lands on my head, if a tremor, menopause, cancer, ALS, these are the ABCs of my fear. The doctor says, I don't have a pill for that, dear. Well, what would be a cure-all, ladies? Gin and tonics on a summer night? See you in the immortalities. Oh, blurred. Oh, tumble rush of days we cannot catch. Oh, thank you. So I've always written about the body's vulnerability, but in this new book, Soft Targets, the fear of annihilation goes beyond the self to an imperiled planet on which we're all soft targets in our soft bodies. And there are so many threats, the threats of climate change, of gun violence, of global terror, the threats to our democracy, and so on. And as Dick said, I direct the creative writing programs at NYU, and we have programs also in Paris, a low residency MFA and an undergraduate intensive in the summer. And we were there, and I started writing this book during the terror attacks of 2015 and 2016. Actually, there's an alum of the program here, happens to be here, and we were just remembering how traumatic it was. In any case, I'm going to start with an excerpt from the book that was written during that time, which was quite a harrowing time there. And the book is written in linked lyric sequences, and what that means is it's almost like one long poem, but they're poem chapters that are, and they're fragments that are strung together, and I'll be pausing between them. And I'll read 3 of those little chapters. When it comes to this flesh neck, even a finger could do it. Even a sharp stick, a blunt blow, a fall. My jugular, there's a soft target. And night's a soft target, all of us within it. Osama shot dead in his pajamas, and everyone on the Brooklyn-bound F as a man removes a bomb from his bag, a square of chocolate he detonates in his mouth. There were real officers in the street, but they were doing it wrong. One winked at me, another was purely conceptual. One thought to himself as I walked by, you little bitch. Bulge knobs of their guns made them oral, made them real big machismo, even the skinny ones, even the abstract. A certain beauty in the duty of it. Meanwhile, he was broken, she was concussed, and we returned home gilded with what? Safety. In advance of danger, animals agitate. When the time comes, all this will be only shouts and disturbance. A breath leaves the body and wishes it could return, maybe. The news, rich with failure, dither, terror, the bloated moon in constant charge of us as vapor, and this did frame our constituency, even in our cozy homes, even in a painless state on the downriver, oh, oblivion, sipping champagne as another night brings forth, dancing its big plan, its damage. I had a thought, but it turned autumn, turned cold. I had a body, unwearied, vital, despite the funeral in everything. Ample with bodies, covered in graves and gardens, potholes and water, an ardent river we walked together, a wine and rising breeze. Much trouble at hand, yet the lilies still. Still there was bread on the plate, still wine, while the streets filled with refugees, and the French stepped over them en route to patisseries, cafes. Massive powers that be, what will be? We smoke our pipes to forget you. And mildly now we bide our time, the violence and real cities under siege, but also filled this morning with coffee drinkers, office workers, taxi drivers, boys on bikes. Again, we came to rest on the riverbanks, finding a bloodlight flooding what we'd come to see. How is it to have a body today, to walk in this city, to run? Oh, you who want to slaughter us will be dead soon enough, what's the rush? And this our only world. As you can see, it has a problem. As you can see, the citizens are hanging heavy. The citizens' minds are out. Eros, Eros. In Paris, we stayed all night in a seraphic cocktail haze, despite the blacked out theater, the shuttered panes. Tonight, we're the most tender of soft targets, pulpy with alcohol and all a sloth. Monsieur, can we get a few more? There are unmistakable signs of trouble, but we have days and days still. Let's be giddy, maybe. Time lights a little fire. We are animal hungry, down to our intricate bones. Oh, beautiful habits of living. Let me dwell on you a while. Summer seemed to hover along the Seine as we sat with our backs to the street, letting time pass, lying all afternoon in the grass as if green and insect were the world. I am, and you are, we wrote, until the paper seemed a tree again, and we walked beneath it, greener and unsullied afresh. Golden we were in the moment of conception, and alive, as if we always would be. It was good getting drunk in the undulant city, whiskey lopping off the day's fear. Dawn came with an element of Xanax. Dusk came and I dumbed myself down. Where there were brides, grooms, these bored boy soldiers with iPhones and guns. I'm a soft target. You're a soft target, and the city has 100,000 softs. The pervious skin, the softness of the face, the wrist inners, the hips, the lips, the tongue, the global body, its infinite, permutable softnesses. Soft targets, soft readers, drinkers, pedestrians in rain. In the failing light, we walked out, and now we share a room with it. Would you like to read to me in the soft? Would you like to enter me in the soft? Would you like a lunch of me in the soft, in its long delirium? The good news is we have each other. The bad news is Kalashnikov assault rifles, submachine guns, pistols, ammunition, 4 boxes packed with thousands of small steel balls. And so we become ourselves again in the old style, side by side in fragility, beside the Pantheon crypt, doing nothing as if for a reason. We'll lose to gravity, dark and pure, beyond what can be replenished, beyond what can be beyond, a plot of nerves gone under. The musk scent and filthy pile will be. But we were lustrous from time to time. In a garden, in a city, in a wood melodious with pine, blur of speech in the gullet, gale of want in the throat. Woke up warm tomorrow in a spot of sun, a flesh, a wild alive, all only. So that was France, but then things weren't so great in this country either. And Charlottesville happened, and I had never written about my family's history, but I felt sufficient pressure to need to do so. My grandmother got her immediate family out of Nazi Germany in 1938, her mother and her siblings, and the whole rest of the family was killed. So I'd never written about that, but I did in this book. And so this sequence I'll read next starts in Charlottesville, then goes back to Frankfurt, and then ends again back in this country. Is this sound okay, by the way? Yeah, okay, thank you. I don't know what's so neo about neo-Nazis. They seem a lot like the old Nazis to me, shouting, "Jews will not replace us," in Charlottesville. In Frankfurt, marching by my grandmother's house, shouting pretty much the same. Ought we to get going now? Galloping seems a good idea. Frankfurt, 1938. Oma was a soft target. Got her soft the fuck out of there. Smuggled out her egg purse to become us, and so it ended, and so it didn't end. If she'd been distracted, if she'd lived blindly, if she'd been dazed or dullard or out of luck, kissed her dog goodbye, snuck candy in her pockets, coins in her shoes, ran past the door of her school, her doctor's office, her favorite park, the house where the boy she secretly loved lived, was made to wade into the night like a swimmer, thought she could not swim. Those Nazis, they knew what to do with the soft. We were just powder puffs, living ones, falling, dandelion fluff. There went my family, there went yours. Epic of soft, prolonged in a long fall, an adagio of soft. Meanwhile, waltzing. Meanwhile, chocolate, bread, a lullaby for their cherished kinder, a good night story, a good night kiss. She dreamed a train underwater, a door in the sea, an end. Even in a clean kitchen, even in a smart dress with friends and teachers, a brother on the soccer team, the bright star she shared with all Germans, the sun. She wasn't in a good position, not that night, not any night. And when would she get to New York, St. Louis, Detroit? The swiftest bike to bike a frantic Frankfurt. Her wits, the manifold papers, certified, stamped, correct. Not me, not mine, not now, she thought, and bore away her family with a winter wind, a vivid mind. With my mother stitched inside her, smug and soundly now, carried off through the oceanic effluvium, soft across the sea, she sewed a wedding dress, and it too was soft, silk soft. And now we know from soft. Pulse, you know it, and history knows. Over and over it sicks itself upon the soft. Eat, drink, breathe, and kiss your favorite face. Do what you want, and now. Soon, laid deep beneath, the flimsy weeds will be, and how. The last day is the purest theft. This is my plangent note to the ambassadors of love. All dreaming now is retroactive. The radioactive someday is here. Our kings are cranks, crooks, incongruous. They are improper, ill-equipped. How is it we pushed the handle down and they popped up, toasted? And now they sit at the head of our table. Can we be excused? Comrades, commend yourselves on a job very poorly done. And now what will be? I'm alarmed. Keep your passport handy. Keep cash. Keep water and batteries. Collect your meds and loved ones just in case, and silence your phones. Stay off the beach, the street, the planet. There must be some mistake. And the doomsday clock flicks forward, stares us down. So the obsessive question for me is how to integrate, how to protect the cherished little world, friends, families, loved ones, children, when the outside world seems so increasingly menacing. So the next section, this is the last section I'll read, it starts with the birth of my daughter. Into the sheets we slipped, a crisis affixing us to each other again and again. Womb was I, turned out. The babies were a transcript of our making, a panorama of life on its back. Thrice I plunked out the humans until we'd had enough of such extravagant weather and lay there thinking of the bed. How much of life happens there? At the center of everything, the piquant, transitory joy. And from this, even the charred wrecks, even the Dahmers, Nazis, Bin Ladens, all flesh, fleshed out of wild, unmanageable eros. We're always a bit dirty with it. In the birth room, you couldn't think. You were a single moan and tangle. You were in agony, maybe, but also had wings like never before. Welcome to the love bazaar. Let's dip back into it again, virility. Pheromonal lure of silk slipping off skin. Excessive again, his kiss, her shudder, as snow petals down a lace of white flowers, and our baby sleeps in her indigo crib. Such a reckless act to pop out a human with the jaws of the world set to kill. And she arrived before dawn, staring straight. Her job to eat what exists. Any caress is precious. Exaltation in the breathing room, a life force. Who knew our brushstrokes had been so precise, greening darkness with this young vine and this new pain to slow time? Drew more and more from the nub of her until she was herself, emerged ready to live her one life, and she seemed friendly, looking sideways as I swiped her clean. Honey, here are your limbs. We are not too late. Daughter is a soft target. In a fuchsia crush she's come, bare and guileless, fair and free, funneling forward without a helmet toward the barest, sickest tree. Keep them from being head kicked in. Keep their blood inside intact. Keep them from shooting sprees, from x-rays and MRSA, spiked metal, sadistic men. Take a self and put her out in the wood for the struggle. Invest in armature. So I told the sky it should stay blue, told my daughter she should stay breathing, told my love he should and we would, as the monster storms showed their teeth and the fires flared and the wines weren't plumb enough to numb us and our leaders' virulent egos seethed, people dying off as if it were nothing to leave this planet, as if it were a breeze. Last poem. Don't blame the wisteria for setting off a feeling like freedom, a feeling like joy. We watched the people walking in the open square. One of them was a specialist in killing. Fear was the way of others. I've seen the most extraordinary thing about people, their faces. Remember the trees in springtime? We ate candy beneath them. Shouts from the playground, static of yellow jackets, your fresh new haircut. Here's a tweeted canto, some words for the end of the world, for when I'm forever nothing, and you are, and you, and you. What we were for such a brief. M with the laundry, the dog at his bowl, the boys going at it out back. Oh, you who want to slaughter us will be dead soon enough, what's the rush? And this our only world. Now, bring me a souvenir from the desecrated city, something tender, something that might bloom. Thank you so much for listening. I think I'm supposed to take questions. Is that the idea? So if you have any questions, happy to answer them. Did the air conditioning go off halfway through or something happen? I hope it's fine. It's okay. Everyone's okay. Yeah.
How long have you been writing poetry? Were you a young girl?
I always loved poetry since I was very young. When I was 13, my mother gave me a book of Anne Sexton's love poems, and that was it. I signed on for life. I mostly read for years, but I was always secretly writing. I went through graduate school studying poetry, and then when I finished my doctorate, I thought, you know what, I don't want to do to poems anymore. What you have to do as a critic, I wanted just to write my own poems, and I focused on doing that. Yeah. Hi. Oh, we have the best students. I love it. I feel like all my work is of a piece, getting up every day and reading poems and writing poems and talking with students about poems and talking with the faculty about poems. And our students, we have an MFA program in New York, and our students are some of the most, they're coming out of that program, and they're the most dynamic, exciting poets we have right now. Ocean Vuong graduated from the program. He was in my class in 2015. It's crazy. So our students are extraordinarily talented, and I feel so privileged to be able to work with them. It's a great privilege. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm curious about how social media and everyone, young people's obsession with their iPhones and their gadgets changes the field or how they will be able to appreciate poetry.
I think it's something we all need to think about, how to slow down and focus on one thing for a long enough time to read a book. You know, I think we're all distracted and agitated constantly, having to shift from thing to thing. But an interesting thing about social media is it has, I think, helped coalesce and nurture and energize the poetry community in a way. Poets have huge social media presences and are, when they have a poem out, they'll put it up on the Facebook or Twitter or Instagram even, and that's a way of spreading the word. So that, and from that perspective, it's been a good thing. But in terms of our ability to read and have a sustained attention, maybe not such a good thing. Although poems are short, you can read one, and that's one of the nice things about poems. Even if you don't have a long attention span, you can read a poem. Questions? Yeah.
So in your poems, you're so connected to both kind of beauty of the world and those kind of small moments and the vulnerability of people. And I wonder how being a parent influenced that part of your poetry.
Yeah. I've written about my daughter a lot. I mean, the book, the third book that I started reading from, there's a whole section about, I had two sons, and then 10 years later I had a daughter, and she was this like crazy surprise. So it's been, I mean, I guess it's been good for my work, and so far as I wrote, it generated, I don't know, but what's the question exactly?
You took it being a parent has shifted your sense of kind of which of those dual sides of life is kind of more primary in your
Oh, it's a constant struggle to integrate the two. I mean, it's really a tough time to be alive right now. It's so harrowing. And and then I have this young girl, and trying to explain or imagine what her future will be is really, really scary. And I think part of the work of the book that I just wrote is how to make sense of it all. It's all happening at one time. The planet's being destroyed at the same time as she's coming into her. She's just turned 7, so it's tough. Yeah.
And that point that you raised in the third part of your reading of Landau's guilt of bringing a child into the world at this time, a lot of my contemporaries and my friends were speaking about this problem.
Yes.
Do you think that is purely contemporary, or do you think that has been a problem throughout history, or do you always feel like?
I have a pretty strong sense that people have always felt like the world was going to come to an end, but it feels particularly pressing right now, doesn't it, with what's happening with the climate? That adds a new layer. There's all the violence everywhere, and then on top of that we have, the planet. So, but in terms of guilt, I didn't plan to bring her, so it wasn't a choice. I mean, she just showed up, so it would have been a tougher decision to make maybe if I had to make a decision. Any other questions? Yeah, hi. Passes what? I'm sorry, can you clarify what you mean?
She passes, so she was Jewish, right?
Yes.
So she didn't pass as German.
No, definitely not. She would.
Had to get out, right?
She did, yes.
And in this space, we all pass, right? Most of us pass as white. We pass as having money. We pass as having privilege.
You mean in this actual space we're in right now? Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
What do you think, how do you think we should address that with your poetry?
With my poetry?
Or however you want to
Well, if you're reading contemporary poetry, you know that there's an extraordinary renaissance happening right now. Voices from all corners of life are being amplified. I mean, so it's really a great time for a diversity of voices and identities and perspectives in poetry. I think there's a lot of support and interest in it. I don't know, it's not perfect, but it's a more exciting and alive time in American poetry than it's been in years. So I think it's really exciting that way. If you've been following Ocean Vuong, his novel just came out, but he had a great book of poetry came out a few years ago, and he came from Vietnamese immigrants who were illiterate rice farmers, and he faced all sorts of hardship, and now he's written the great American novel apparently. So and he came through as a poet, and there's a lot of stories like that right now. So I think that's a good, really good sign. I don't want to overstay my welcome up here, so maybe is it time to stop? And I have a nice silver pen to sign books if you want. It matches the book cover. Thank you so much for listening. You're a great audience.